Good morning, Carbon School District. Today is Friday, April 24th. It's day 25 of school dismissal. We're becoming pros at this now. I'd like to share with you a really quick summary of some great work that was done by Dr. David R. Hawkins. He is somebody who has a rare combination of being a medical doctor and a doctor of psychology. And his life's work was the research that will be presented here that he used for, I think it was around 40 years in clinical service. In his research, he came up with a scale of emotions and feelings, and he was able to determine the lowest and I guess worst emotion or feeling, all the way up to the highest and most positive. So you can see this scale as something that goes from very negative at the bottom, which is shame, and then moving up through guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. And then there's a dividing line that divides negative emotions and feelings with positive emotions and feelings and motivations. Uh, his research indicated that as soon as that line is crossed, powerful things happen in the lives of people. So his work was to help people to move up the scale and cross that line between pride and courage, because at that point many positive outcomes occur, whether those are emotional or physical, financial, in all areas of life. So the question is, what motivates you? What motivates me? And are we doing things out of the lower half, or are we doing things out of the upper half? So powerful emotions or feelings make no demands, where forceful emotions and feelings are insatiable. Their appetite constantly consumes. Powerful emotions and feelings energize, they give, they supply, they support. Forceful takes energy, drains energy. Powerful is compassion and positivity. Forceful is judgmental, and it really makes you feel bad inside. Powerful unifies, forceful always creates counterforce, it polarizes. Powerful is beyond argument, it is self-evident truths. Force tries to come up with a win-lose situation. I win, you lose. It creates enemies. It requires constant defense. We're always defending ourselves. You see this in social media all the time. Powerful has endless motivation, endless energy. Force requires proof and support and a lot of expenditure of effort to maintain. In power versus force, it's important to remember that sources of power are beyond argument. Those are self-evident. Health is preferable to disease. Life is preferable to death. Honor is preferable to dishonor. These are self-evident truths. It's also important to know that force has transient goals. When those goals are reached, there remains an emptiness. We see this in celebrities, in people who have a goal to be a millionaire or billionaire. Once that happens, there's an emptiness, and they wonder, how come I don't feel fulfilled? If our lives are dedicated to enhancing the welfare of others and everyone we contact, our lives can never lose that meaning. Disillusionment and emptiness come from failing to align one's life with the principles from which power emanates. Force can bring satisfaction temporarily, but power brings joy lastingly. So here's some words that are connected with both. The words on the left are associated with power. The words on the right are associated with force. Accepting versus rejecting, energetic versus agitated, flexible versus rigid. And we have talked about that before. Helpful versus meddling. And then you have praising versus flattering, respectful versus demeaning, unselfish versus self-seeking. Here's a concrete example from our history. This is the American Revolution, and in this situation, you have one of the most powerful military machines of the day coming up against a ragtag rebel army that really had no business trying to take on the might of the British Empire. So how could these rebels win? Well, it was a matter of power versus force. One entity was motivated by greed and power and control. It was all about pride and anger and desire. The colonies, the United States, newly formed United States, were motivated by simple principles like no taxation without representation, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Power overcomes force every time. Another example is the work of Gandhi. You look at the map there, all of the red is where the British Empire was in control. They were in control of so much of the world. They were so powerful. And yet, this one little tiny 90-pound man single-handedly overcame the entire British Army. It's the greatest force in the world. Why? Well, because the British were interested in dominance, in empire, in control, in self-interest. However, Gandhi and his movement was focused on the intrinsic dignity of man and his right to freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination. It was all about selflessness. It was all about the dignity of all human beings. So much more powerful, and overcame a great army. Now, we've picked on Great Britain quite a bit, but the British actually have their time in history of approaching things from power as well. In World War II, the greatest military machine the world had ever seen was considered to be unbeatable, yet it could not defeat a tiny little island across the English Channel, England. And why is that? Well, the Nazi army was focused on domination. It was authoritarian. It was all about intolerance and fear. And Winston Churchill and the British unified through principles of freedom, selfless sacrifice, love of country, and kinsmen. Power versus force, and power wins every time. So what motivates us? If our actions are motivated by a power emotion or feeling, we cannot fail. If our actions are motivated by emotions that align with the lower half of the chart, we cannot truly succeed. It will not be actions based on fear that help us to succeed in this time. It will not be actions based on guilt of what we should be doing or shouldn't be doing, or anger. Our success will come from a place of courage, of love, and concern for our students. The challenge today is to choose to be powerful instead of forceful. Hope you have a wonderful weekend.